And I'm Bill Miller, and this is the Bill and Dave Show.
No, it is actually the Dave and Bill Show.
I
don't think he'll ever get this one right.
And we're kind of like the old-time movies. We're on the road.
Well, you're part of the old-time movie era, but I'm actually part of the more modern era with respect to that. But yes, we're on the road.
Thank you, Arnold.
And by invitation to the El Dorado County broker-manager meeting to talk about the mandatory submission rules 7.6 of the MLS.
And by the way, any of you watching this, you can invite us out. We'd be happy to come out and talk about these very important information.
Yeah, and specifically the 3-day business rule, what you need to do once you have a listing contract. You know, put the listing in the MLS, use a future on market date, which we think is very, very cool, and then also information on MLS waivers.
Hey, Dave, why don't you grab one of those handouts that we have, and let's cover it.
Okay. Hey, we're here to talk to you about something that's creating quite a stir out in the MetroList region, and that is the mandatory submission or 3 business day rule when you're actually putting a listing into the MLS. And for starters, what has to happen is that a listing must be entered into the MLS within 3 business days, or the listing must be entered with a future on market date, or a listing waiver must be signed by the seller, which would permit you to withhold that listing from the service. Bill, would you mind telling them what number 1?
Well, yes, a listing must be entered into the MLS, and by your agreement with the MLS, you've agreed that anytime you take a listing, you're going to enter it into the MLS within 3 business days. When you do number 1, the listing is entered into the MLS, that listing goes live immediately, and it's viewable by all the participants and subscribers in the MetroList MLS.
Yeah.
What about 2?
Number 2, listing must be entered with a future on market date. And what this means is by putting in at the point of entry a future on market date, which is required when entry, you're agreeing that you will not partake in any marketing of that property whatsoever. In addition, the on-market date may be extended up to 45 days from the original listing date to accommodate carpet and paint or staging or whatever things that you may need to do to get that listing ready for when it does go on the market. The listing is viewable only by your office. It's not viewable by the membership of the MLS. So it's just the folks in your office can see that listing. And when the on-market date is reached, the listing goes live immediately. It is viewable by all, and most importantly, the days on market counter and the cumulative days on market, if it hadn't been pre-listed, will be 0 on 0. Hey, Bill, why don't you tell them about number 3?
Number 3, that's a listing waiver that is signed by the seller. These are instructions from your seller, and it must be submitted to the service, as all of these within 3 business days. When your property is on a waiver, there's no restriction on marketing that property. So whatever your flyers, signage on the property, going to meetings, national websites, whatever you use as your toolkit to market that property, there's no restrictions. You can go ahead and do that. When these listings are withheld from the MLS, they can be considered an office exclusive because you can, in fact, share that information with people in your office and anybody that you would really like to share that with. Again, you're marketing that property. If the property is sold while it's on the waiver, the listing may not be entered as a comparable. There's been lots of metrics over the last few years by different organizations that show that properties that are exposed to the entire MLS bring better offers and higher prices. Okay, and then finally, if you do enter the listing into the MLS after it's been on a waiver for a period of time and you haven't been successful in selling the property, the days on market counter will start from the listing date. So if it's been on waiver for 30 days and you enter it into the system, the days on market counter is going to say 31. All of that.
Right.
Maybe net out, why would I use an on-market date? What are my advantages?
Well, for starters, fundamentally, the on-market date is underutilized. brokers and agents out there are categorically, for whatever reason, they use the listing waiver for everything. Our position is that this tool has been available since 2006 and it's not being used.
Right.
And it's not being used to the detriment of the sellers. And then ultimately, when the properties are going in, if carpet and paint and that type of thing is being done while it has a future on market date, the days on market does not accrue. Most agents and brokers tell me that the first thing that they hear from a buyer is when they're driving around and they look at a property, they say, how long's that thing been on the market? And then the offers are written according to that days on market. So if you were not marketing the property, you were putting carpet and paint in, getting the place ready to go, then use the future on market date. The benefit, guys, is the 0 on 0 days on market, cumulative days on market values, which create better offers coming in. It's going to save you time. You're not going to have to mitigate, bad offers as a result of the high DOM. The other thing is that the broker absolutely is going to want the agent to get the listing. Right. Inherently, your best buddy will come in behind you and list that property out from under your nose if you don't have them under contract. So your broker is going to impress on you that they need you to sign that contract. Utilize the future on market date, but keep in mind, you may not market the property in any way, shape, or form while that future on market date is being used, and that includes coming soon signs.
Yeah, makes sense. And the other is the waiver, the MLS waiver. And with the MLS waiver, all you're telling the service is that we're going to withhold this property from the MLS. But at that point in time, I can do all of the marketing that I want, put it out on national websites, whatever the case may be.
No restrictions.
No restrictions with a
Zero.
waiver.
Right.
I'm just complying with the rule that I've got to let the service know that I've gotten a listing agreement within 3 business days.
Right, and a couple things there is that if you have the property on waiver and you're unsuccessful in selling that property while on waiver, and you ultimately decide to put that listing on the MLS, the on-market date will actually equal the listing date. So if you waived it off at the beginning of the month and it's around the middle of the month, when the listing goes live ultimately, you're going to have days on market being 15 and the cumulative days on market being 15. And just understand that when you use the waiver, that will occur if you ultimately wind up listing the property. The other thing I would note in there is that the MLS is a cooperative, and that listings sold outside the cooperative are not qualified to be entered into the MLS as a comparable sale. So really what happens there is if you're out on waiver, you're not making the offer of compensation and all the cooperation that goes along with exposing that to other individuals, and therefore not sold through the cooperative, listing may not be entered as a comp.
Hey, so we hope you find this information very interesting and that we've clarified the rule. And we apologize for not being really funny, but this was a subject that not very humorous.
Well, I do want to add one thing, and you did bring up the point of interesting, and I just want to introduce to you the most interesting man in real estate, Mr. Bill Miller.
Yes, thank you very much.